Greetings, productive programmer. So in this lesson, we are going to take a look at how Phoenix will assist us with creating our databases and our schema for our databases extremely efficiently with the provided Phoenix generators. So Phoenix comes packed with all these generators that we can use, and one of them will allow us to generate schemas for our database. So we can utilize this using Phoenix by doing mix phoenix.gen.schema. And this is a command that will generate the schema for our database, and Phoenix provides this for us out of the box. So first thing we want to do is we want to name our schema. So I'm going to call ours customer. And then we provide the plural version of this, so customers with an S. And that is going to be essentially the table name that is going to be set up in our database if you're familiar with databases. Now, if you're not as familiar, you'll see, I'll show you how this gets generated into code afterwards, and I'll make it all make sense for you. But after we do that, then we can just specify the name of fields that we want our customers to have. So we probably want to have a first name, and then we can map it to a data type such as string. We can have last name, and we can map that to a string. We can also do something like email, and we can map that to be a string. And then finally, maybe we want to have something like age, and we can map that to an integer just to showcase a couple of the different data types by including an integer. So let's go ahead and let's run that and let's see. So it takes a very few short seconds to run, and then we get a lib customer.ex file, as well as this one that is our migration file. So we get this migration number here that has our date in it, and then it says create_customers.exs, and that is going to be our migration file. So let's take a look at both of these in depth so that we can understand what's happening here before we do the suggested command that's provided for us, which is to run the migration. But what is a migration? So before we look at our migration, let's just look at our customer schema, so that way we can make sense of that. So that's in lib customer.exs. So we're going to go to lib customer.ex, and we can see that our customer has been generated for us. So we just had to run one short little command on our command line, and all this code got generated for us. And we're going to break down all of this code, and we're going to go through it in the coming lessons, as well as this lesson we'll talk about a little bit of this. So we have customer.customer, and this is going to be our customer schema, which is why it says use Ecto schema. And then it imports some stuff such as change set, which we'll have a discussion on in the coming lesson. And then it defines the schema. And you can see that these all map to the fields that we specified, such as age being an integer, email being a string, first name, last name being a string. And then we timestamp everything. So as we are modifying our database, we have timestamps included with all of our changes in our database. And then we have down here a section called change set, which we are going to explore in a future lesson because that is worthy of a whole discussion of its own. And we also created this migrations file here. So let's go ahead and let's open up that migration file, which was created in priv, so priv. So inside of priv, we have repo, and then we have migrations. And then we can locate this new migration file that was created for us. And this migration file, all it does is it basically puts all of the it communicates all of the necessary changes utilizing the ecto.migration command. So if you're not familiar with Ecto, Ecto is basically the way that we interact with all of our database changes using Elixir. So Ecto comes with Elixir out of the box, and Phoenix exploits the power of Ecto by utilizing all of the Ecto commands to generate our database. So Ecto is going to take care of all the hard work for us, and Phoenix is going to take care of generating all of the schema and migration files for us extremely easily and utilizing the power of Ecto on the back end. So this migration file says that we need to create a table, and it says that we need to add a column called first name, last name, email, and age, and it defines the data type of each one of these as we specified it on the command line. So we don't have to type all of this out by hand. We luckily just get this provided to us with one simple short little command line command. So let's go ahead now and let's run the recommended step, which is to run mix ecto migrate. And what that will do is it will run this migration file and basically set this up in our database for us. So let's go ahead and let's run that command mix ecto migrate. And you can see what took place here is that it generated the customer app. It went ahead and ran the migration file, and it created the table customers, and it migrated our migration file. This is the number that came from our migration file. And it sets up our database to include now a table called customers. And so you can see how easy it is to use Phoenix to generate your database and your tables. So we just went ahead and created our first table using Phoenix. And that was really easy, and it only took a short little command. Here's that command again. So you can see you can define your schemas using in Phoenix very, very easily. And so just to verify that this actually worked, we will go ahead and do a PSQL, which will drop us into a Postgres shell. And I'm going to log in as my user Postgres. And I'm just going to show you that Postgres did in fact create this table. So I'm going to do /connect, and I'm going to connect to our customer_dev, which again is the database that we're using. So if I open up dev.exs, that's the database that was created for us, customer_dev. So I'm going to connect to the database. And then after I connect to the database, I can look at all of the tables, and you can see that there's a customers table that was created. And that is the table that we just created from our migration. And something else that was created for us is customer_ID_sequence. So one of the cool things about Phoenix and Ecto is that it's going to take care of automatically creating the unique ID that the customers will have. So it just knows by default that we are going to have a unique identifier. So we didn't have to specify inside of our schema that we want to have a primary key that is ID. It just takes care of that for us, and it sets it up for us by default. And that's why we have this customers_ID_sequence. So that's the sequence that's basically going to auto increment our customers so that they all have a unique ID. And right now we just have a table without any customers in it. So as we create customers in the coming lesson, you'll see that they'll be auto-generated with an ID. So it's basically like there's a field that's kind of like this, but it's going to take care of all the auto incrementing for us, and we don't have to specify it in our schema. So that's taken care of for you. So that's the nice thing. Phoenix is doing all the legwork, and Ecto is doing all the legwork behind the scene to take care of that sequence for us. And if you're familiar with databases, that shouldn't be a foreign concept. Databases typically will have an auto increment primary key for tables. But if you're new to databases, maybe that could be worthy of explanation, which is why I broke that down. So if we inspect that table, so we do /D, and we just take a look at customers, we can see that this table has a couple things on it. It does have that ID, which is that auto incrementing sequence that was generated for us that we just discussed. And there's also a couple other fields that Phoenix takes care of generating for us that we also don't have to think about, which is the inserted_at and the updated_at. So where do those come from? Well, those come from the timestamps. So that's what we discussed before. When we generated our schema, that was automatically created for us, the timestamps. So Phoenix takes care of automatically setting up those as default fields as well. And that's common because anytime that you modify a table, you kind of want to have a record of when a row was inserted or when it was updated. And so that's all taken care of for you by default. So again, Phoenix packing in that power for you so you don't even have to think about it as you work. And then you can also see that the first name, last name, email, and age are created for us, respectively. The names and the email are strings or varying characters as it's typed inside of Postgres. And then finally, the age is of type integer, and those are the types that we specified in our schema. So they match 1-to-1 here in our database. And then to exit Postgres, we can just do /q. So just to recap this lesson, we have exploited the power of Phoenix using the Phoenix generate schema commands. So this lesson is to explore how powerful the gen schema command is. And you can see how it did all the legwork of generating the migration file, as well as generating our customer schema for us. And it also set up some stuff which we haven't talked about yet, which is the change set. So let's see in our next lesson what other powerful features Phoenix packs into our application, and we'll talk about change sets.